Game number 1 of this best of 3 semifinal to determine who makes it to the finals face Mech packs. So, guaranteed something versus Protoss. In the bottom right, it is Kaizi Gaming's Raynor. Top left, it is Mal's Esports HeRoMaRinE on Gresvan. A map that I actually kind of liked for Terran when I looked at it. I appraised it, studied, critiqued it. I valued it at 9 Terran points to 11 Zerg points. I don't know. I don't know scales. I don't know currencies. What scale would you use to determine map quality for each race? I guess points is as good as anything. So as we watch a pretty typical TVZ opener between two fairly famous StarCraft 2 players, I don't think I need to dive too deeply into their histories. Take a look at the map. The reason I actually don't mind it so much for Terran is because I do like the balance of open spaces versus chokes. I also like the way that the attack paths form for Terrans, and that there is a direct attack path that can hit the Zerg in some vulnerable spots, while also kind of defending. I guess I should be looking at it the other way. Kind of defending some of the more common ways that Zergs defend said pushes. One of the big ones being run-bys, which Raynor is very much known for. So run-bys, not as easily achievable on a map that is set up like this. I don't know why I feel so much more comfortable doing it on this side of the map, but I do. So, you know, imagine HeRoMaRinE expands here, as Raynor is about to. Then the only attack point, the run-by points, rather, are like along the very south, up into a location that you can have a tank and a bunker here or something along those lines. That's pretty much good to go. And then up here, which is usually where the attack is going for the Terran anyways. And there's a north side as well that the Zergs could absolutely set up a run-by for, but again, that's kind of hitting into your reinforcement line as it's coming, as opposed to being maybe a little bit further out, where it's, oh god, that Reaper almost died, where its main army is farther away, less likely to come back and defend, as well as when you hit it close to the reinforcement point, hopefully you are also somewhat protected by your third base. So again, in the situation that I have in my mind, it's like tank here, push here, run-bys could happen here, and they could happen here, but your army is kind of centered around this. So you wouldn't be in so much dire straits, where some other maps that are in this map pool do not have a similar setup. And then if a Terran were to take this base, they also have a fair chance at stopping the run-bys with a planetary here. And any run-by here could technically slip through, for sure. But it's just, again, less likely, as you have something that's kind of close to the ramp, to a certain degree. Obviously, you flip the situation. HeRoMaRinE's over here. For Zergs, they do have to worry about a couple of things. So just on the Zerg side, if Raynor were to take this base, then tanks could siege up from here, so he couldn't really reliably take that base. If he takes this one, then tanks can also siege up here, not hit anything important, but something that the Terran could run back to. And then if they take the fourth base here, then they're also, again, on that low grounds, which it might not be so bad, actually. But something to consider for the Zerg's perspective. And then they don't really have all that many very open spaces to take engagements. I mean, they're not exactly super small chokes like this big, but they are chokes. So, I don't know, I actually kind of like it. But it is, at the end of the day, a very large map. So if we're talking about late game TVZ, I think there are worries about the amount of bases available, as well as who's more mobile when it comes to hitting left, right, left, right. But we'll get into that if we even do. HeRoMaRinE is setting up for a Marauder Hellbat attack. So the Viking clears out the Overlord. No chance for Raynor to see this. He did just see a third supply depot as opposed to a command center. And if you're going to go into a typical 1-1-1 setup into a third CC, it's usually two depots into a third CC. So that's actually kind of a tip, that it could be a Hellbat attack. as if it was a third CC on the high ground, there just wouldn't be that many supply depots to begin with. So, believe it or not, Raynor should already be kind of clued into something. And then also the Viking opener, not extremely common, often combined with something a little bit sneakier. He really is trying to get a handle on this. He can't quite tell. Nothing's entered into the main base. But Hellbats should be a concern. And then the Marauder is the addition that Raynor might still be tripped up on. The Queens are going to get slowed down, not able to escape back to their buddies, but all of the Queens pretty close together in the first place. One Marauder going down before the Hellbats transformed. Queens now going for that bit more of a concave, and this is how Zergs are most expected to deal with these attacks, not necessarily by getting straight into Banelings, but by doing this, microing a hell of a lot of Queens. And then the, Terran side of things is hoping to get a little bit more of a jump on the Zerg. It's a surprise build, or the attack pattern is a surprise, and that the Queen count falls rapidly. So you pick off one, you pick off two, and then they're scrambling all of their Queens on the front line, so you pick up the ones over here before these ones come together. That's more of when a Hellbat attack works. And the reason I chose to analyze rather than hype is that I could already kind of see it failing. I already knew where this was going as soon as Raynor had all of his Queens together. And that would be, I think, the major point of evidence that HeRoMaRinE did not get a jump on Raynor, did not surprise Raynor. Raynor could have also gone for a Baneling response as soon as he figured something was off, but then you'd have to invest into the Banelings faster. One more drone sacrifice. You'd have to actually make the Banelings. So that's 8 Banelings that may or may not even get particularly good hits. And you might still be relying on that Queen concave idea anyways. But then Queens, they're so cheap. They don't cross Larva, which is a absolutely resource for Zerg. They have other abilities, like taking down this Liberator, for instance. Creep spread. Even shift queuing their injects, right? So you don't have to worry about it for a little while. I'm just pointing out all the strengths. I know it might sound like I'm being a little salty, because I also saw the Terran's attack die, but I think I am just trying to be factual here. And so in the approach to being factually, I just think that Raynor's really playing a very good game. Raynor is clearly taking things even more seriously than he used to, and I don't want to say that he ever was, very I don't know, lazy about something, or that he just didn't give a fuck or something like that, but he definitely had more of an overconfident attitude, and he was a little bit smart-mouthed at times, and he's really seemed to buckle down in the last 6 months, and it's just unfortunate that we couldn't see him in Atlanta. So a Raynor who's taking things seriously sounds pretty scary. I suppose the chance that he's not as loosey-goosey, and sometimes that is bad, but in this case it looks pretty good to me. HeRoMaRinE's follow-up attack grabs a couple more Queens. 8 have died in total, but then you also got to check out the Terran's losses as well. And keep in mind, 18 Hellbats, you might scoff and say, minerals, big deal. That is also time spent on the factory that's not building widow mines, and also not transferring over the reactor to anything else. So, yeah. Supplies are pretty even, so actually this is going to be great. 3 Queens for free, as well as the creep spread. And I do want to say, the insistent attacking to this point has made the creep spread really bad. So that is absolutely a point in HeRoMaRinE's favor that I think he is now abusing. Banelings are trying to come in, but they're a little bit late. The splitty is good, and Raynor, I think, underestimating a little bit HeRoMaRinE's tenacity in this attack. If the Banelings were combined a little bit faster, they could have caught the Marines moving up the ramp still in a bit of a clump, or the Lings could have helped out a little bit more to keep them unspread, or when they do spread, the Lings can then individually surround the Marines. So that was not the best hold so far, that's for sure. Raynor is going to continue to struggle on this particular attack point too, which I think is just the most important thing, and really gives a lot of credit to my opening talk about the map being, in some ways, good looking for Terran. Having no creep spread to combat the Terran attack over and over and over again here is really worrying. But the creep spread elsewhere is going strong. Raynor does have a 4th base. Mining has had it for a while, and also is getting a 5th base in a potentially vulnerable location, but it's not really, because there's no tanks in this game yet. So, yes, the Marines could park themselves here, but then it's not the same as having that tank park itself and hit both up here and over here, while the Marines do the mobility game however they want to do. So it's not as much of a stick, you know? It's not like a real anchor push. It's just like come and go, come and go, come and go, come and go, which is also pretty good in the hands of a master, which HeRoMaRinE is pretty damn good. At this point, though, he's going more often than he's actually attacking into Raynor. Seems like he found that one moment, and it was a damn scary moment for Raynor when the banelings were involved, and the creep sword was gone, and his queens had already been depleted from an earlier mishap with them on the front lines. But as soon as he was able to pop all the larvae, get the banelings involved, go into those hydras, well, now things seem to be smoothly going Raynor's way once again, at least to a certain degree. Wouldn't drop does kill 8 drones, and Raynor is on 5 bases to the Terran's 4, so this is actually what we expect in a TVZ. HeRoMaRinE doing all this aggression through the middle of the map, really keeping that creep spread a problem. Has also been macroing really, really well. So 4th base has been up, high SCV count as well. He might just be in a little bit of trouble. The tank not being sieged, the Woodamines not being burrowed, all means that the mass baneling attacking him right now is going to be more effective. And as soon as I try to bring up how HeRoMaRinE might still be totally okay in this game, we do have Raynor punching in at the right moments. It's a very dangerous attack. Even there, the baneling's getting caught behind the hydras, so you'd think maybe something could happen for HeRoMaRinE, but the numbers just aren't there. And Raynor does ultimately take the 1-0. Very different if HeRoMaRinE's Woodamines are burrowed and his tank is siege, and he can use some of his own SimCity to his effect, but he was caught in the most awkward possible position. He was caught moving through his own choke with all of his units unprepared. It was very weird. Raynor is favored, just in case people didn't know. Raynor is not just favored in, I suppose, the kind of prestige that we assign to both of these players. You know, HeRoMaRinE did make top 4 last year's Katowice, but it was top 4, not top 2. And people still kind of more so chalk that up to a bit of a dream run than a expectation for HeRoMaRinE. But then also we do have Raynor winning the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times these guys have faced off. So yeah, it's would not be surprising if we had a PVZ finals, and I'm kind of rooting for it, not because I hate HeRoMaRinE. No, because we have those kind of rarely, because Zergs are kind of rare, and I do want to see another Protoss tackle Raynor's ZVP, since Showtime couldn't really do it. He got steamrolled by Swarm Host and never got his footing again. Top left Raynor, bottom right HeRoMaRinE of Babylon, by the way. So I think I have some valid points, if I do say so myself, about why that last map looks kind of decent. And I think HeRoMaRinE's overall game plan was actually really cool. I mean, he basically hit a point on the map that he saw could be abused, and he just hit it over and over and over and over again. It's like, you know, Raynor was injured in battle from a previous battle, so you knew that he had a weak knee, and he just kept hitting the knee over and over and over again. But in this case, he compensated with a great left hook. Right hook. Is he left-handed? No. Right hook. And then HeRoMaRinE couldn't really stand up to him. So that does seem to be a lot of what I talk about when it comes to Terrans, is that I love the theory crafting. You know, I talk about this a lot for Special too, because Special does some of the, you know, outlying builds, I suppose. But even for HeRoMaRinE, you could argue that Hellbat Marauder is kind of an outlier. It's not super popular. Hellbat builds are often ridiculed, perhaps warranted. And it is, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a cheese, and you're supposed to be able to do it over and over and over again. So when a Terran player decides to do it, you want to give it a little bit more thought than just, okay, they're desperate. Especially when they start off the series. I mean, HeRoMaRinE knows that he's maybe not favored versus Raynor, but to go ahead and evaluate himself as having absolutely zero chance, I think that'd be unfair. But I think combined with the just ever non-stop action that followed that up, right? Right into those Woodamines, right into the Marine drop, right into the next Marine drop with Woodamines, I think it could have worked out really well, but well, not well enough. So now we move on to Babylon. And Babylon does not have the same points that I would bring up for the previous map, but it does still have a couple of nice things about it. as we again have a very typical opener. This time HeRoMaRinE is going to go into a third CC though, so definitely not any aggressive, super aggressive openers anyways. And is going to go into a 1-on-1 though. Okay. So third base over here for the Terran. Only has to worry about this attack path, to be fair. But I would say that you compare the two, and I feel like the run-bys coming in from the north are a lot more obnoxious. Because you are not, as the Terran, again, as Terran, you're taking this base, you're not moving forward. Even if you were moving forward, these rocks didn't exist. That's still a fair ways away from actually having kind of a combined defense at the third and natural. And you're not going through this. You're going through here. So you're way far away from actually having more of your army sort of protecting it from just naturally where you're rallying it. So you rally it over here to your third, or you rally pushing all the way over to the left side, and it's just an open opportunity for those lings to jump in. It is a very short map, which would usually be the favoring of Terran, right? Short map, not a lot of bases, that type of thing. Good for Terran. But I think Waterfall has proven that to not really be the end-all of how we evaluate maps. So yes, it is short. And it gets way short when these rocks are broken down. But I don't know if that's going to be what HeRoMaRinE is able to abuse. HeRoMaRinE is going for a special build, by the way. He did go for a third CC, so this isn't super hyper aggressive, but it's a second factory. So I guess Hellion Cyclone Banshee. HeRoMaRinE, certainly not very much well known as a mech player, has been experimenting in the open cups, as I think he absolutely should. Love it. I think you can take a couple of maybe losses you wouldn't have if you played standard, I suppose, to throw in a couple of experiments to make you overall a better player. But it is also something that is touched on with the balance patch. The balance patch did try to buff specifically Banshees and Cyclones, and in mind there was the battle mech style of this matchup. It wasn't to affect TVP, not really to affect TVT either, but TDZ. It's not Cyclone Hellion, it is Blue Flame Hellion with Banshees, which I think is totally fine as well. Not too shocked to see that. It's just that the pure Hellion production, I would say, is a little bit more of a kind of a gamble in a sense, in that it's more gotcha, whereas Hellion Cyclone is more stable. It's poke in, poke out, poke in, poke out, right? So if Raynor has zero idea that this is happening, currently he has zero idea, he really doesn't know what's happening, then he could just suddenly have Blue Flame Hellions or Hellbats killing all these lings. And he only has lings right now, guys. He really does not know what's happening. He has not been able to count a surplus of Hellions. These Hellions only recently joined up with the initial crew. He's not been able to count the amount of factories. He hasn't even gotten in to see that it's all the gas is already taken at the third, to even hint that it's, you know, mech. But there's the Blue Flame already revealing itself. So how are we going to handle this one? It's been done before. Raynor's looking to mitigate damage here. 9 drones going down so far, but 10, 11, that's still not really enough if HeRoMaRinE's about to lose all of these Hellions. Okay, 14, 15, I'd say 20 maybe is approaching enough, to be honest, but that is it. It's approaching enough. And he gets up to 16. So during all of that, as Raynor realized that this was going to be eventually settled, as his queens kind of cornered those Hellions, he went back into droning for the most part. And now he should be, very suspicious that it is mech. There are games, I believe, where we had Blue Flame open into bio. I'm pretty sure. But especially with the fast 2 gases here. You should know. So Roach Warren should be coming down. Ling Baneling will hold Raynor's defenses for a limited amount of time. Hopefully a good enough amount of time. Banshees and their pinwheels are on the way. It's supposed to be better now that they're faster. It was a very, very slow upgrade. Now it's not so bad. And then going into mech. So here's another thing we don't really get to talk about because mech is just not meta. Mech is often perceived as the super late game turtle style, which to be fair, it often is. Even BattleMech has a certain element of extended game processing, right? where you don't expect the game to end abruptly, whereas 16 Marines still to this day can throw off some professional Zergs and just kill them. And they're just like, oh, that's stupid and I hate myself, but it happens. BattleMech not often, although it can also snowball. And it is consistent. There's not really a large gap in time where you don't have to worry like a tank mech would be. But one of the reasons that it can be played on good on a small map, whichever style you play, is if you get kind of the jump, I would say, on the Zerg player, which HeRoMaRinE absolutely has done and is now swooping in with those banshees. And then you take that momentum and you hit them with a very strong attack, like 180 supply, on a short map, giving the Zerg the least amount of time possible to recover from any of that early game damage. Now, if they're just swimming along all nice and they've never been bothered in their life, I don't think Mech on a small map is going to really be beneficial, or Mech in general is going to be beneficial. That's the question as we watch the new patch in action. But I can see if you get the kind of the 1-2 punch, if your macro is also pretty good, which HeRoMaRiNE's pretty good, then the Zerg player who would usually be counting on a certain amount of time to recover would not have that time. But Raynor, I feel like, is already kind of recovering. He's handling the Cyclone Hellion portion of this pretty well. The Banshees didn't just suddenly surprise and mineral line with 0 Spore Crawlers. Raynor did take into consideration the Banshees, so that wasn't a, 20-30 drone kill because everyone's panicking. It really wasn't bad at all. And Raynor is already prepared to actually engage the Hellion Cyclone. So what was the Cyclone change? If anyone is unaware, the Cyclone change that now their upgrade, which they do have, now affects the non-armored units more so than just giving them an anti-armored addition. So specifically more helpful against something like Lings and Banelings. Or wait. Banelings are always tricky. You always assume that they're like a Ling, but they're not. They're armored, aren't they? Well, basically then like Lings and Hydras, I guess. The thing is, as much as I understand the idea, I would still say it is the overall pacing of this style of play that is wanting. It's not... I don't think the buffs to the style of play buff it in any meaningful way. What it buffs is the annoyance. And to the non-professional players, the amount of chaos. But to a professional player who is able to stop the bleeding effectively, I don't know. I don't know if I still like it. It's too bad too, because BattleMech can be really fun. Swarm Host obviously being the way that Raynor has decided to play out this mid-game portion, and that does force HeRoMaRiNE to play more defensive. It's a bit controversial, that's the right word. It's a bit debatable, certainly, if going into Swarm Hosts against BattleMech is really the way to go, when sometimes Mech players will go BattleMech to face off against Swarm Hosts, like a response to Swarm Hosts. So Swarm Hosts responding to Cyclones can be kind of funny, right? But I can see how it's worked out in combination with Raynor not being suppressed in this game, not always on his back foot, panicking because of Banshees and Hellions, oh my. Although the Banshees are now really starting to shine. And that's another thing that going Swarm Host into would not usually be advisable for. You would not usually go Swarm Host into someone who has mass speed Banshees. The Terran player would go speed Banshees against the Swarm Host guy, you know? So very interesting decision from Raynor. And I'm not just saying that to cover for bad, because I don't know if it's bad. It might still have worked out. It did force HeRoMaRiNE to get the heck off of Raynor's side of the map with his main army. But the Banshees still got the, I guess, the jump they were looking for, which they initially did not. So Raynor's in a bit of trouble as he escapes, as he retreats. That's where Cyclones really do well as well. Part of the style of BattleMech, I would say, despite being a more, faster type of play style, because you are constantly engaging, is that you are also constantly taking map control and suppressing the Zerg. And when you do that and you're fast enough and you're good enough, you can also expand like crazy on the map. It's also happened in TDT when Cyclones are super popular. But you can see that HeRoMaRiNE doesn't just get up to 4 base. He's on his way to his 5th. He's building 4 extra command centers. He's stopped the creep spread below the halfway points for most of this game, right? So he's kind of the non-number portions of StarCraft right now are looking quite good for HeRoMaRinE. The numbers do not look terrible for Raynor, but look who has the bank. It's HeRoMaRinE. So Raynor really needs to get a great engagement, which doesn't seem to be happening here. As the tanks get added in, that can oftentimes be that nice little addition, substitution, that changes the way the Zerg had been approaching fights beforehand. So if they were literally just totally honed in on Hellion Cyclone, Hellion Cyclone, Hellion Cyclone, even a couple of tanks added in can really be a doozy. Very annoying. And then if you do want to transition over entirely into a tank play, then that can sometimes also catch them by surprise. Don't think that's going to be the option as long as the Swarm hosts are Raynor's choice. He does still have some of them up and running, but I think many of them have died. Oh, just 4. That's not too bad. Raynor is really starting to lose out on mining. I'm looking at this third base. There's absolutely 0 mining on the third base. Swarm hosts are covering that to a certain degree, but the Ling Baneling is certainly going to be expensive, and the Ravagers ever get caught, those are expensive things to replace. A couple of Corruptors have been added in for a while now to try and help out against the Banshees. Finally killed the last one as well, so at least Raynor doesn't have to worry about that anymore, but still has to worry about the ultimate effectiveness of his composition when the Swarm hosts are on cooldown, which, there you go, most of the Ravagers killed. And Raynor was, I mean, almost all in with that. 71 drones. Ain't what it's supposed to be when you're only on 2 base mining. The third base was finally resaturated, but it's already mined out. And the 5th base is really, really late. HeRoMaRinE is the one playing a more, I guess, a Zergy style at this point. Constantly engaging, taking over the map, mass expanding, super high worker count. Was it the buffs to BattleMech that affected this game? Or was it just the general surprise and usage, good usage of BattleMech? I don't know. There was a time where this was the most popular style back before Katowice 2020. Raynor was struggling against it, and then Zerg kind of figured it out. Gotta say, the response was not often Swarm hosts. The response back then was Mass Ravager, really. They have the extra range, as well as the spell that can help buy time and force disengagements from the Cyclone player. And then they went into spellcasters. So, you know, obviously people would think fungals first, and that was what was kind of first tried. And then I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's wrong to go into fungals. But then there was also, I think, a more focused approach was going into the Ravager count, keeping that high. And then going into Vipers for the Abducts. GG. Which Raynor notably did not do here. He went into Swarm Host for it. Which I'm not going to blame for his loss. But I don't think I liked it. I think I would have preferred an old school style defending against that. Commitment of Banshees was the real surprise. Could be. It did seem like Raynor didn't take that into account. He dealt with the Banshees initially totally fine. But then when he was forced to fully evacuate only because of the Banshees, that did seem to be a major turning point. So you're probably right. You probably just thought that it wouldn't be committed to. Third map's going to be Dragon Scales. Top left, Raynor. Bottom right, HeRoMaRinE. HeRoMaRinE. Hey, I think just playing some decent BattleMech. The Banshees are a huge surprise as well. Eventually, they're a huge surprise. Just kind of a weird way of phrasing it. And I think the shortness of the map was really in favor of HeRoMaRiNE's situation and playstyle. The shortness of the map can sometimes go both ways, right? It means a lot of things, but one of the things that it means is that momentum gets pushed heavy one way. So someone who has a lot of momentum usually doesn't really let go of it on a short map. Like a long map where it takes you those extra 10 seconds to get to your opponent's base, that's another warp in round, and they're not as dead as they once were. But then it means that if you ever overcommit, if you ever realize you messed up on a short map, the punchback is really harsh as well. You don't get time to be like, oh, well, I had this huge bank, let me go ahead and warp in or produce or whatever it is. But I feel like that's lost when you go for swarm hosts, right? You need to wait. You have to wait. There might be benefits to when the locusts are around, but you can't argue that there's benefits when there's no locusts. You just can't argue that swarm hosts being a paperweight is somehow beneficial. That is the takeaway. That's the downside of swarm hosts. And I think that's an even more important downside on a short map, where even to a point, your evacuation path is shortened. Because, I mean, to a certain degree, I guess you get faster to a point of, like, a wall, basically. Like, literally, you get to the wall of the map faster on a short map. So as opposed to pulling back on a very large map, where creep spread has also been pushed a little farther, and then having that room, before you know it, you're pushed back to your own fourth, which is what was happening there for Raynor versus HeRoMaRiNE game 2. Bottom left versus bottom right was basically what was happening. New map, I can't really display it, but you get what I'm saying. So the swarm hosts not only have like kind of a barrier, they have to then go up, I suppose, to the other bases. They're also revealing a weakness. So in the process of retreating, they're also like, hey, I'm running past this village with absolutely no armed guards and I cannot help. What are you going to do with the village that has no defenses? Kill it? Aw, shucks. It wasn't so much a problem. HeRoMaRiNE didn't actually snipe too many hatcheries in that base, in that game. Which is usually one of the things that happens with cyclones. They lock onto a hatchery. Pew, 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 pew. Anyhow, perhaps I'm way biased and I'm just looking for excuses not to like the swarm host response. But I assure you that bias is not balance. It's just swarm hosts are stupid. Third CC once again for HeRoMaRiNE. Will he add on a second factory? Will it work again? I don't know about that. He's already changed it up, right? I don't think he went for Viking last game. It's more like what he did in the first game. I'd be very surprised if he repeated any build. And it's already not a repeat because there's a third CC. This time around, Raynor also kind of juked his overlord in a certain direction that it came from a more guaranteed direction to scout something. Those were words in a certain order. That was commentary right there. The Overlord didn't just situate itself over here and see the supply depot or the Helling situation. It didn't situate itself over here, so then it comes in through like this long pathway. It actually tucked itself way over here and then got in. So it was able to see everything. Hold on, quick check. Well, basically. So technically it's possible that's a Raven, especially with the new Raven, but you go ahead and assume that's going to be into Banshees. Second factory is on the way, so this is very much what he did last game. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he did go Viking last game, I just completely ignored it. My bad. Well, the Viking didn't do its freaking job, so it might as well have not been made. Let the scout happen to a degree. Actually, the follow-up scout is going to be more important here. 3CC, you might say, okay, I guess I'm good. I don't have to worry about anything. But of course, when they add a second factory this fast, just the way that you would expect to defend against a typical 3CC gets broken. So it's not that this is a Haxor's move. Go 3CC, add a second factory, you'll win all your games. It's just that a Zerg player expecting the trend, the meta, is going to be caught off guard. Raynor did actually add on a Roach Born for a hot second. I noticed. I saw that. I definitely did. And it disappeared. I don't know if he was changing his mind. If he was going to try and do a little bit of cheesy wheezy. And then it got scouted. or if it was a block. But why would you block with Roach Warren out of the Evolution Chamber? So now that must have been a changed mind scenario, which is too bad, because having just a handful of roaches against someone who is actually going Blue Flame Hellions once again. Well, that would be nice. That would be nice. Banshees are making their first appearance. They will see a Baneling nest, actually. And they will see the Roach Warren. Now, Banelings can also help against the Blue Flame Hellions to a certain degree. You know, if the Hellions try to run in again. If Raynor were to make a handful, just in cases. But they don't do a good job of chasing. Or really warding away. Couple of drones went down. Raynor got into third base again and saw the two gases being put down lickety-split. So while he did see that last game, it happened literally as he was getting blue flamed. Blue flame. And well, it looks like it's not gonna... The timing is not beneficial for Raynor anyways. Well, he loses only 11 drones this time around as opposed to, what, 18? 16? Well... Still, it'd be very much preferable to have an army that could be in place at the right time to stop almost any amount of drone kills. I think with this many Hellions, if the Terran wants to push the issue and grab the tail end of the drones, then that's not stopping them, but... Yeah, I think I'll accept 12, because I accepted, again, 16, whatever it was last game. I still thought that Raynor was actually in a fine position. I really cannot blame that last game on the opener. Maybe some people argue differently, that's fine. But the amount of times that you witness the Zerg player recover from a situation like that, it's countless, actually. It's I'm not gonna say it's not a big deal, but it's something that's a guy like Raynor especially is usually pretty good at fixing on the go. He's definitely earning the name of the comeback kid for a second there. Might earn it again at Katowice. Fourth base is on the way. Actually, it's literally on its way to the fourth base. Fifth base is on its way building. And we do have, holy shit, that's double Banshees, actually. Well, the Banshees were so good last time. Why not just do more Banshees? This time around, though, Raynor did not end up going for Swarm Host. He is going for, I say the more typical and better. But typical is up for discussion, because it's just not a style we're seeing very much. A little bit more experimenting, thanks to the patch. Which is going into a hive. And he's also getting a Spire, which is quite important to deal with this. But the Banshees are still running around being quite the nuisance. 11 drones extra from the Banshees. A couple of them sacrificed for that, so... Again, not that bad, actually. As long as this doesn't lead to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. So the first thing that it would usually lead to is Hellions killing even more drones. He got 6 more, that's not that bad. And then a lot of macro mistakes. Tons of macro mistakes. And I just actually see that right now. Raynor still on track for his Spire finishing to produce those Corruptors. I'm sure he was like spamming it during the entire time. He's also still on track as far as his mineral, his bank is being kept low. His queen count's still up, so while maybe his creep spread is taking the most multitasking hits, it can be replaced, it can be continued. Well, did I speak too soon? Queens, hello? 2 of them gonna get killed, 3 of them gonna get killed, and not quite a 4th. This is a troublesome little choke here for Raynor, but there's no tanks. I think a couple of tanks anchoring this would have been quite brutal. Corruptors also appear at a very good time. Yes, they have to be wary of chasing too much, then the cyclones lock on, and that's bad, but if they literally just ward away the Banshees, the ground army will tackle the ground army of HeRoMaRinE. Just the ground army of HeRoMaRinE is not something that's incredibly scary, but the Banshees involved Yeah, that makes it just, you wonder if this can snowball before you know it. Raynor should be adding on Vipers as soon as he gets the gas, but, you know, he's had trouble affording everything he needs to afford. All the Ravagers, the Banelings, the Corruptors, the upgrades. And he has not had the option of adding on those gases quite yet. He's up to 97 drones, though, so I feel like he could go up to 10 gases if he really needs to. But so far, just focusing on the production of the ground army, pouncing on top of HeRoMaRinE. HeRoMaRinE forced to evacuate. HeRoMaRinE actually quite low in the Hellion count, by the way. So the Lings are surprisingly effective. They're tanking the lock-ons, and they're just distracting from better targets. Getting little nibbles on the glass cannons that are cyclones. Cyclones get a bunch of lock-ons of the Corruptors, so I'm not sure that dive was quite worth it, but it actually looks like it might have been. That might have been an okay trade of Corruptor versus Banshee. And then Raynor also was able to push that battle mech away entirely, get some of that creep spread going again. He's still very secure on his 96 drones. He's up to 6 bases at this point, although not mining quite yet. And HeRoMaRinE is moving on to actually his 6th at this point, so usually you're not tracking how often the Terran is expanding. It just kind of comes up in natural flow of very late game TVZ, but these guys are moving fast, and BattleMech expands fast. So moving even to a forward position is going to help anchor some of the pushes and defenses if the movement goes over to the left. Right now, movement's all on the right. There is a planetary here as well, which is going to be a nice little comfy location for HeRoMaRinE to back into. That's a lot of Banelings, though, and they might be heading right for it. Going to go for the SCVs, and in the process, also hit the planetary. All their forces combined with the Roach Ravager. Planetary absolutely falls. 22 SCVs go down as well. And when the battle mech gets pushed like this hard enough, it is very difficult to recover. You've lost all that momentum. You've lost all of the positioning that Cyclones lock on and disengage from. So the less room you have to disengage, the worse it is for Cyclones. And the tank swap could not have been better timed. Well, actually, it could have been. It could have been better timed. Thank goodness it was timed when it was. If this was Cyclones, I think that Raynor is continuing to win right here, right now. With tanks, we can pause for a second. But Raynor undoubtedly has the momentum, has the situation under control. HeRoMaRinE is going to be forced to really go tank heavy. He's adding Cyclones again now, but again, all that momentum completely gone. Going out of the sails right now for HeRoMaRinE. It's such a drastic change, but when it happens, you know it happens. So you feel it in the gut as the Terran, you realize you're pulling too far back, and the Zerg player starts to get really excited. I'm doing it, Mom, doing it. I'm pushing back the battle mech. Corruptors peeing on buildings every chance they get. Missile turrets being placed down or taking up minerals that HeRoMaRinE does kind of need. He is still on 5 bases, technically, and he managed to save this extra orbital. But Raynor doesn't just rely on the army that we've seen right now. It's not just Ling, Baneling, Roach, Ravager, so HeRoMaRinE says, you know what, tank's gonna stop you. Tanks, Turtle Mech, you're done, kid. Like, you can't continue here. He's got the other options. He's got the Spellcaster option. Still haven't seen them in play yet, but I think we will. He's going into Broodlords as well. That's another option. And he has the time to play around with this a little bit more now. That Battle Mech's not constantly breathing down his back. Nor Banshees. Banshees have not been a problem in a long time. One Raven. Well, I like it. Oh, Vipers are out. I'm sorry, guys. I totally missed you. Hey, Viper nerf. Now they're definitely not good versus BattleMech, right? I'm just kidding. It didn't matter. And now they've been slightly unnerfed, so they are back to... I mean, their nerf didn't exactly change the look of Abduct. It still looks like they double Abduct a lot, but... yeah, anyways, there's a slight pause between they get the second Abduct off, I guess. I caught a little off guard. That Cyclone number has grown with the Hellbats, and now the tanks are pushing with everything. So Raynor, he was given that time to get whatever he needed to hold up against a late game Mech Terran. But he didn't actually get to stop it very much. Talk about another map that gets very small very quickly. And Raynor was caught really on his side of the map, but just not very far from HeRoMaRinE's, trying to form an army. Blinding Cloud's going down, and Corrosive Biles hitting occasionally as well. Corruptor's kind of dead weight in the sky, not being particularly helpful. Might as well go kill themselves on a planetary trying to pee on it. HeRoMaRinE has recovered from what could have been game-ending moment right there. He is recovered. He is building extra command centers once again. He is maxed out, working his way to 3-3, but there are the Broodlords. There's the other option that Raynor had, and that should be like a KO option. HeRoMaRinE is very unlikely for HeRoMaRinE to get underneath those Broodlords with the Cyclones. It's not impossible, but very unlikely. The lock-ons have all been used on the hatchery already anyways. Tanks start to splash back in the Cyclones, the Broodlings start to nibble, and there you have it. HeRoMaRinE forced to entirely disengage. Now is the runaround time while he built up a Viking count. Vikings not often seen as the response to Broodlords because, well, many reasons, I guess, but primarily because we don't see Mech that often, I suppose. And then if you can, spooky Mech is still a better option. At the end of the day, ghosts are pretty good. Not gonna disagree with that. And Vikings, well, maybe a little less good, but they are now more microable. And when you have a desperate moment, anything will do. So Thors are on the way, Vikings are on the way, but the damage of the Broodlords already being done. Planetary falls, HeRoMaRinE once again stopping all that momentum. Playing that runaround game. Cyclones on the right side, gonna kill the base that he knows is there, that he was harassing earlier. Something over here also might be able to grab something. Nope, the Zerg army is coming forward, and that is an area of which HeRoMaRinE cannot retreat from. He's gonna try and take the engagements while he can, while Vikings go on top of the Broodlords that were made from the only Corruptors that I said should go kill themselves, which is very rude of me. And now there's no Corruptors. So Vikings, I love when that happens. You just have literally 2 Vikings or something, and then they don't remember to build Corruptors. That's always amazing. Hatchery dies. Some of the army got traded out. Both of them coming out in 17.5 minutes on Dragon Scales at a pretty much even supply, even situation. Some high-tech units there, some high-tech units over there. Some bases here, some bases there. HeRoMaRinE having those excess bases from the mineral spike earlier on is taking them easily with orbitals currently, but we all know Raynor just needs to send a couple of lings over there for them to not be super effective. Vikings also helping against those Vipers. They are literally more microable. There's no arguing against that. The Vikings did get a buff, and as such, they are a little bit better in all situations to get Vikings. So, you know, maybe that'll help. Maybe they'll do something. Vikings will definitely take out all these Broodlords, but now the concern is the ground army. Tanks not plentiful enough at all to help out against the Roach Ravager, and the Broodlords even using their last breath to put Broodlings on top of those tanks. The Roach Ravager wins out on the ground as HeRoMaRinE wins in the sky, and the ground is looking a little more important, or maybe there's enough of a depth. Reinforcements coming in, Cyclones getting their lock-ons, 1 or 2 tanks getting a couple crucial hits on top of Raynor's army. This game is still anyone's to win, as Raynor does get those bases back up and running. His drone count had been hit, and I'm not sure he's actually transferred many of his drones, so his economy is not looking so hot. Now he's transferring the drones. There you have it, plus needs to transfer these as well. Raynor wanted to win right there with the momentum again, saw the opportunity, thought it would be enough, and there was a lot there. I don't really blame him. There was a ton. And then suddenly HeRoMaRinE, just the lock-on after lock-on, suddenly came out ahead in the supply. His unit survived for longer. Mass mule drop coming down as 10 SCVs fall. Who gives a shit? I just dropped 10 mules. Plus, we're at 86 SCVs anyways. HeRoMaRinE is at an even army supply because of that. So keep that in mind. But his army, actually more mobile right now, as Raynor is forced to just defend every which way that he looks. He can't do it fast enough. He doesn't have enough units in every which direction. And he needs his bases. There's no other safe bases to take away from this harassment. Raynor's actually going to lose this game. HeRoMaRinE, with enough expansions, enough economy to come out ahead, just barely, whenever Raynor did seem to have a pivotal moment. And now Raynor, going for the last hurrah, is going to realize that he really is screwed. He can't chase down these Cyclones. He can't take care of this base. HeRoMaRinE is going to make it to the finals and break a 5-series losing streak against Raynor. GG.